Maze is the third generation of the Martin Altena ensemble. Comes out of MAA. It's about 10 years old, and it's a collection of 6 artists.
But other than that, you can go into a group that's specialized in, I would say, very much sound-oriented music, open score, not really improvised, actually very meticulous, conceptual thinking, very strong, feels very strong. Everybody has a very strong sense of sound, and I think we have a real group sound. That's Maze for me, group sound.
Yeah, so Sounding Place, Emptying Space is the name of our festival, and the focus is on how we experience listening in a space, and how to bring that into the fabric of what we do as musicians. So all the pieces in the concert, the Lucier, the Cage, my piece Orbital, have to do with a sonic experience of space.
Well, a place is more or less a collection of spaces. Place. Place is also sort of defined by the people that inhabit it, and the sounds that are going around there because of all the activities. And the natural surroundings, the way the buildings are against each other, and the resonance and acoustic. That's the space, the place. And space is more or less more of an abstract thing. Space can also be in one note, or you can create a space.
I think our idea about focusing on the idea of space and place for the festival had to do with perhaps our experience in the concerts we've done, and how we've really focused on pieces to do with space, but never really used the space of the concert in a way that like we do today, like we have before. Really opened up the concert hall, really going outside, and that had to do with also wanting to work with this group of young musicians, Bao, and really their identity is very much tied to performing in public spaces, outside spaces, on location.
Ik weet niet hoe fijn voelen ze. Misschien eventjes de Albert doen. We're gonna start. Met watjes.
Ja, dat dacht ik al.
Ja.
These cage variation pieces are really, I think, in a lot of ways, the basis of what May's repertoire is. In a way, it's like really the first time Cage proposed this way of playing that was with a kind of score that you make yourself, and that you sort of negotiate with the musicians how you do it. We've played actually one of the very first pieces we did play as May's was May's Variation 2. And we made a recording of that and we performed it. So I thought, yeah, it's about time we do another Variations, and I thought Variations 4 really fits in with this idea of a kind of spatiality. The instructions of the piece, what Cage comes up with like a page of instructions and two transparencies, and the transparencies are just basically circles, like these black circles on a transparent sheet, and black dots. And what he wants you to do is you cut the transparencies. So I printed them on a transparent sheet. No, that's not true. I got transparent sheets and I made circles myself. And I cut them, and typically Cage with the Variations pieces, you drop them onto a map of Splendor. So I contacted Anne LaBerge, who's a Splendor member, and she contacted the architect who did the renovation for Splendor, and he had sort of maps of the space. So we dropped them onto the map and drew lines, and that's how we configured these paths.
Memory space is about recreating a physical space using sounds after the fact. Today, when we perform memory space, we're using either recordings taken from the physical space which we wish to recreate, or taking notes in written form about the sounds heard, about what we experience in the space, then following the notes we've written and using instruments, recreating this duration of time in the space of which we were listening.
So Orbital, it's so nice to do Orbital in the festival because the origin of the piece came from this this thing we set ourselves as maze, you know, during COVID, in the first months of COVID, about making something, you know, outside in our environment, or dealing with the sort of isolation in some way. And we all made these 5-10 minute clips that we put online. Mine was part of my journey from my house to my studio that I was secretly going to. I mean, we didn't have total isolation in Holland, so and that was along the A10. So once I did this first film, which was basically these tableau of these shots along the A10, I decided, well, why didn't I just go all the way around the A10? I was like, I think everybody had a desire to sort of get out the house, so I would you know, just cycle. And then what was beautiful is, you know, we all experienced this weird, eerie sensation of being outside during these times.
The state of mind you need for performing Orbital, Jannis's new piece, would be one with like a hell of a lot of focus and decision making. So the difficulty, the challenge of that piece is making artistic choices while really focusing on the screen, because there's a big screen with a lot of information. Both pitch information, timing information, shape information of the kites, which are the sort of artificial thingies that are part of the video. So it's very virtuosic in a way, although maybe it doesn't sound virtuosic.
And then I came up with this idea of what I call the kites, you know, so these kind of random 3D objects, 3D geometries, which are generated with audio that's played from a microphone, and I left it open to the musicians to decide how that was done. And we're used to doing, as Maze, we're used to doing these scores. there is a kind of melancholic element in the piece. I think it's quite an ambient piece with a sort of with a kind of reflection on, you know, this kind of the situation we were all in, like in 2020, 21. Yeah.
So in thinking of a new piece for Maze, the reason that FANI came to mind is, firstly, as far as I know, I don't know her entire background, as far as I know she's dealing with electronics and recorded sounds to create her compositions, meaning that creating a piece for live instruments, for some sort of written piece, something in which other performers had to work and play, I thought could be interesting in the way that it could stretch her as a composer or give her a different perspective as a composer, but also as a performing group it creates something perhaps in a different direction for us. So it seemed a sort of nice starting.
FANI is a sonic artist who is young and a very interesting person, musician, and I know her through, what do I know? I know her, actually, I think through the conservatory, just running into her. And I've played with her a couple times, which has been a great pleasure.
I wanted to explore what potential is there when we just change the form by changing the time, but not in a very, let's say, traditional way of just improvising and then deciding when to stop, but just giving instructions, but still give all this freedom and a little bit of random combinations of creating a new form every time.
she could die. She was so terrified she couldn't scream. He was a tall, strong man, and she was a small woman. She didn't want to make him angry. She wondered if this was the end, or if worse was to come. He knows where I live. A Sale is about an assault of a 21-year-old woman that tells the story in 6 different emotions, the same story, at different times during the piece. Her fear increased. When the police arrived, they were both men. They told her that she should be grateful it hadn't been worse. She knew she would never be safe in her home again. She felt violated all over again. A female police officer showed her photographs of suspects. She felt like the woman was trying to intimidate her. There was no way to move on. As far as she knows, he was never caught. So the way it works is that it's sort of like storytelling, that when we tell stories, we don't necessarily always begin and end with exactly one single bow, one single idea. So what it is I've set up it within the computer where the musicians on their phones, on their smartphones, can push a button that means it's time to move on. When we do move on, we don't know which part of the story is going to come next, and so we're improvising and the computer is improvising. She felt bad. He stank of stale sweat and alcohol and rotting tobacco. His smell lingered on her skin. She sat covered in filth. She could still smell his sweat. She wondered if the police could smell it too. She felt soiled. They took pictures of her bruises. She felt like something had been left inside her, and she wanted it out. The thought sickened her, showing her pictures of rapists. She just wanted the police to leave her alone. When I created the piece for Maze, it was very fresh material because I worked with a writer to be able to develop this material in a performative way. And when I did it with Maze, I was in a phase of using a lot of technology like iPads and apps, and at that point then it also was really interesting that these 6 men and all that technology was part of the piece. And now this time, I've also done this piece as a solo, it's completely different. And now this time with Bao, because they're instrumentalists, it was a very raw and direct association between the body, the emotion, and the reaction that people in the room and the musicians and I were sharing. The smell of alcohol, stale tobacco, and semen made her gay. alcohol and rotting tobacco. She felt soiled.